America's Newspapers has just launched a new state advocacy coalition promoted as a coordinated effort to unite state press associations and industry leaders across the country in a shared mission. And that mission is to champion the interests of local newspapers and state houses from coast to coast. Now, with local newsrooms facing legislative, financial, and regulatory threats, this coalition aims to amplify a collective voice. Let me say that again, a collective voice, secure policies that preserves the press' vital role in democracy, and perhaps this is a new solution to a problem some say we have in the industry with too many voices. I don't know. We're going to find out, because welcome to E&P Reports. I'm Mike Blinder. I am the publisher of E&P Magazine, and with me today are two old friends and a new one. I don't know, Dean Ridings, are you old or just an old friend? I don't know how.
Let's just say old friend.
All right, Dean is CEO of America's Newspapers. You're spearheading this national push. Alan Fisco. Alan, you've been on the program as well in the past, president of the Seattle Times, and you're a member of America's Newspapers Board of Directors and kind of championing this effort. Is that correct, Alan?
Well, Dean's the champion of this particular one, but a support role for Dean and his staff, yes.
Excellent. And Alan, you're not unknown for your work in helping to champion industry initiatives and keeping us alive and well, hopefully, or on the path. Debbie Anselm, first of all, congratulations. You were the new executive director of the Iowa Newspaper Association. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to a wonderful newspaper association managers. It's one of my favorite organizations. I actually spoke at their conference last year. What was your background? I got to ask. How did you? Do you have ink in your veins? Do you come from the industry?
I sure do. So I've had decades in the industry. Most recently was a publisher for Lee Enterprises, overseeing 7 mastheads in Iowa. And I was actually president of the Iowa Newspaper Association board prior to becoming the executive director. So fun to be on this side of the business.
We'll dive into what prompted this coalition, what challenges it's tackling, and maybe most importantly, what we can do as a local publishing community to support it. Everybody stand by. We'll get to all that right after this.
This episode of E&P Reports is exclusively sponsored by Blocks Digital, formerly Town News. Even though the name has changed, their commitment to the media industry is as strong as ever. Blocks Digital is now even better positioned to deliver integrated solutions like content management, audience development, advertising revenue, video management, and more. Join the over 2,000 news publishers worldwide that power their ongoing digital transformation with Blocks Digital, serving over 141 million monthly users who view over 6.5 billion pages of content each year. You can trust Blocks Digital to empower you, to connect you at scale with the community you need to reach. Blocks Digital, formerly Town News, now reimagined to help meet the news publishing challenges of tomorrow and beyond. Learn more at blocksdigital.com.
All right, Dean, let's start with you. The why. What was behind this? What is the catalyst for launching this new coalition on state advocacy?
Yeah, Mike, there were a couple things that happened. In our board meetings over the last couple of years, there was a consistent theme from many of our directors, and that was their state press associations are incredibly important. The role that they play is it's vital, and nothing can meet the goals of those organizations like they are able to do. America's Newspapers has a place, but we can't fill a role on the state level. And the board kept asking, what can we do to help the state press associations? What can we do to make sure that they are able to protect their members better and continue to have strength and resources in the future? Some of them are having some challenges financially. So our board just wanted to ask the question, what can we do to help? And then so that was the first impetus for creating this coalition, just to form an organization that could collectively bring that group together and make sure that we're providing more resources and working together even closer on advocacy issues to help each other. NAM, as you referred to, Newspaper Association Managers, is a great organization, but it's not an advocacy organization. It does not advocate on. So I felt like there was a need for that. The second impetus, if you look across the country, the majority of journalists work for a for-profit newspaper. And, I'm not embarrassed to say that I love working for-profit newspapers, and the owners care about their communities. They care about what's going on. They want to produce great local journalism, and that's so important. And I have heard publicly many of our members being cut down and negative comments. And I felt like we need another voice to stand up for the newspapers across the country that are producing most of the journalism that's being done. So this coalition will be able to go in and stand for newspapers as an additional voice collectively so that we are stronger together and that people remember what we're doing to bring local journalism forward.
Debbie, I'm showing on the screen for those that are watching this episode the inaugural 14 state associations that are on board. You're one of them. Why? Why is this important to you?
Well, sure. I think it's not only an important initiative, but I think it's also the timing of this initiative. And when I first reached out to Dean, I was really searching for opportunities to learn from and collaborate with those who are really making a significant impact in our industry, right? And I'll give you an example. Last year, I participated in the legislative fly-in with America's Newspapers and News Media Alliance. And what I heard around, it wasn't just one message, but it was a unified message, right? Unified message against big tech and what our stand was around issues with Journalism Preservation Act and different things like that. And what I learned from that experience and was able to bring back to our state and communicate not only with our members, but with our legislators, with our potential funders, with the community at large was really impactful. And, there's just so much noise around our industry. And we've not done the best job of telling our story. And to this point, there are lots of business models out there. There's lots of successful business models. So this coalition really gives us a chance to hear from those directly who are doing the really good work, hear about successes, learn from each other, learn what messages are resonating. The messages aren't that new, but how they're being told is new, and how they're resonating is new. And I think that's really important right now.
What are you facing there locally that perhaps a united voice would help with?
Sure. Well, first of all, one thing that we always face, I think every state always faces, is just public notice. Protecting public notices in newspapers and keeping them off government websites. And so I've reached out to a number of the folks on the coalition for guidance around that. We were able to successfully come back with a bill that passed and kept public notices not only in newspapers, but on a statewide site that our association manages. But some big ones have been around anti-SLAPP legislation. I think there's 34 states that have anti-SLAPP legislation in place. And Iowa was not one of those. And we were just able to get that bill passed. That's really important and significant. We have a situation right now where our governor has filed a lawsuit against one of our member papers, trying to protect documents, and has to do with open records and government transparency. So all these issues affect each and every one of us in all the states. And this coalition just lets us get really great feedback, support, research, all the things we need to keep fighting the good fight in our states and in our individual markets.
All right, Mr. Fisco, let's bring you in. You represent the publishers on this episode. What say you to your other publishers about why we're doing this and why is this important to the publishing community?
Oh, I think this is exactly what is needed right now. As the focus has really shifted from federal legislation to state legislation over the past year or so, it really came to focus for me just in the state of Washington. We had a bill that came very close to getting through, and unfortunately it died in the last moment, and we're still hoping that a special session might be called so we have one more bite at the apple, but it's similar to the tax bill. But what it showed me was just within the state of Washington, the state association is one person who is wearing multiple hats, and there is really a kind of a lack of focus from a state effort, or there's no centralized voice for state efforts, and half the newspapers don't have publishers anymore. They're located in different states. And it was really disarray, and certainly no disrespect to Roland Thompson, who is our hero, who does this work a day in and day out. But there was a lack of support that is really necessary, that we're hoping that this initiative will help to give those states who have opportunities to pass legislation some support and some guidance and some roadmaps to how to get that done.
Well, let's take this one step further, Alan. You've got the mic. What do you say to other publishers like you that are actively involved in their local states, and should they be supporting this initiative and maybe getting more on board?
Yeah, I think it is both join the coalition, but more importantly, it is develop relationships with your local legislators, both at the state and the federal level. It is really important that they know who you are, because you're going to go in with an ask, and it's a heck of a lot easier to ask for something when you know that person versus, you're introducing yourself at the same time. So if there's one thing that I could tell publishers is start now. At the state level, those will be future federal legislators. And so if you have the relationship now as they move into DC, you're that much ahead of the ball game there.
Dean, I see you're hiring and you're looking for someone to kind of champion this. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first thing that we want to do, now that we've kind of got the initial group together, we want to hire a state policy director. Again, going back to the initial purpose, once really over the last year, we've seen a lot of activity taking place on the state level. One of the requests from our board was that America's newspaper provide more communication about what's happening in each state so that the publishers are more aware, able to copy the legislation that makes sense and to learn from each other. So that is a big goal of the coalition, to share information, but we need someone to help us do that. We have a small team, so we are hiring for a person who will be monitoring advocacy actions in each state. We already have a great lobbying platform where I monitor if a new bill is filed in Georgia that would affect the newspaper, I'll get a notification. So we have this platform that will work, but we need a good person to run it. So we're looking for that now.
One of the if I can, one of the things that I'm excited about this coalition helping with is, if we just look at the state of Washington, 432 bills were passed in 105 days. So it is like DC on steroids, on steroids, on steroids. And it was really hard for us to keep track of what impacts any of those bills could have on us. I didn't even know the bills existed at the time. So this will be helpful, at least I think, putting some light on some areas that people need to focus on, so you don't get surprised at the end of the session. All of a sudden, there's a bill that got passed that adversely impacts you.
Let me swing back to Iowa just for a second. Debbie, we all know that many news organizations have downsized, eliminated publisher positions. Sometimes there isn't a local face interfacing, if I can say that, to the community, thus being that advocate you need whenever you put up the bat signal to get on the phone, send an email, and rile up a representative. How are things in Iowa right now?
So we're pretty fortunate in Iowa. We still have a newspaper in every one of our 99 counties. I don't think that's typical across the country, but we're very fortunate here in Iowa. And we're also fortunate to have really good representation in all of those counties. So that's something that we have traditionally done a really good job of, and my predecessors, I'll credit them for that. So we're in pretty good shape, but that doesn't mean we take that for granted, and we are constantly pushing the need for new editors and general managers. And as our papers change structures and you don't have maybe a traditional publisher, who's the next person in line? Who's the community face that needs to develop that relationship? The other piece that we're working really hard on too is outreach to our J schools, our universities, because we're also really concerned about pipeline and future pipeline. So these messages also impact students, whether they want to enter the field. And so it's not just messaging on legislation side, it's also about the health, of our industry. So another reason why all this is so critical.
Dean, we've got to wrap things up, but let me ask you to whip out that crystal ball, take a look, and tell me where you want to be with this 1 year from today.
Well, I hope that we can add to the resources. I realize it's a bold step to say that we're going to watch 50 state legislatures with just a couple people. It's more than we have now. Again, I hope that we can continue to work with the News Media Alliance, with the National Newspaper Association, both excellent organizations doing great advocacy work. We all kind of have our area of specialty, but the coalition is a way very specifically for another voice to go into a state when needed and to provide that perspective to a legislator about the importance of their local newspaper. That's what this organization can do and should do. So if we have a good year, hopefully there will be new bills passed that will favor newspapers and provide more resources for them, help us do our jobs better because of the acts of the coalition. That's my goal.
Dean Ridings, CEO of America's Newspapers. Thank you. Alan Fisco, President of the Seattle Times, and a man who has many jobs, because you're also working hard for the industry as a whole, especially on the board of America's Newspapers. And Debbie Anselm, brand new, but seasoned in the industry, the new executive director of the Iowa Newspaper Association. Thank you, guys. Why don't we schedule this in about a year? And revisit the entire initiative, see how we're doing, and update the audience on where we're at. Thanks for your valuable time, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this, Mike.